Okay, we're here with Craig McDonald here at Fall Industries Studios just for the rehearsal. I say just for the rehearsal. This is the Clan we're talking about. Craig.
Hi, Keith. How you doing?
Not so bad, mate. We've got to talk about these guitars. I mean, this is since I last spoke to you. I don't
we
think.
have to. Go on.
Yeah, go on.
Don't tempt me.
Oh, go on. Don't get you started.
Well, this
in
one.
other words.
This is my number one guitar. I was thinking of naming them after Thunderbird characters, actually. In
Yeah.
which case, this would be Scott.
Oh, I see.
So,
Why Scott?
Because he used to ride Thunderbird 1.
Oh, got you. Right. Okay.
See, you've got to be a certain age to know that one.
Yeah.
This one's Virgil.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as number 2.
I see.
But yeah, number 1. I've had this for a long time, since 1978. Actually, it's seen me go right the way through the new wave of British heavy metal days and beyond until now.
Right. Well, tell me a little bit about the new wave of British heavy metal, just to
British
remind people what.
Those who weren't around at the time.
Exactly.
Was around about 1980, 79, 80. A lot of the bands came through there. I was in a band called Sinner, trudging around the country alongside the likes of Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, Saxon, and all our other household favourites.
Who are they?
Yes, that's what they say about Sinner.
No, I mean, what do you think? What was it about those bands? Do you think that really made them household names, Craig? How did that work? Do you think?
If I knew that, Keith, I'd be a household name myself, wouldn't I?
Well,
but I guess really it was right place at the right time to a certain extent. Maiden themselves certainly had a very good manager who was pushing for them all the time, but they also had the songs as well. Steve Harris obviously writes some good songs there, and they did have to get the chemistry right. They went through a few lineup changes before they actually got the one that worked. Saxon came from Sheffield or Barnsley or somewhere, and again they had a few lineup changes, and Def Leppard have had numerous lineup changes. I think we all know about. So I think it's the first time you do it, you don't always get there.
But the common thing we were talking to Neil Buchanan, from Marseille and other new wave heavy metal bands. One thing that Neil completely admits is the fact that they didn't have the hit single, and in the days of Top of the Pops, that was a biggie, wasn't it? You got the hit single.
Because even though Top of the Pops, Top of the Pops was good actually, because you did get a mixture of rock bands and pop bands and disco and everything on there. And there were no rules really about what was going to get on Top of the Pops. And indeed Iron Maiden were on there, and Saxon were on there, and Judas Priest and all that kind of bands. We weren't.
Tell us a little bit about your early influences.
My earliest influence was Mark Bolan and T-Rex, who was basically playing rock and roll at the time with things like Get It On and Telegram Sam. He was certainly my main influence. I just fancied the idea of jumping up and down with a guitar like he did,
Yeah.
He made it look... I don't want to sound like a pun, but he made it look glamorous, really.
Sure.
To me, it was I was sort of 11 at the time, and I thought, this looks quite good fun, really.
Yeah.
So I think from there, that started it all off, and I started liking the other bands around at the time, like Slade and all the other 70s bands. But even then, people like Alice Cooper were coming through.
School's Out.
Joe Gunn, School's Out, Hawkwind were on Top of the Pops doing Silver Machine, you know. Quo were there with Paper Plane, so it was a pretty good time, really. I think.
Yeah, and we have to mention
you
have to mention a certain Mr. Blackmore as well, because there is a style issue here.
Yes, well, he was the next big influence, really. Richie Blackmore and Deep Purple. I was completely blown away the first time I heard Deep Purple in rock.
Yeah.
The Beginning to Speaking, which is the first track on the album, was just. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. This was what I was looking for in terms of guitars, and the whole album there just carries on the same way. And I was an instant Richie Blackmore convert.
Tell us a little bit, just fast forwarding a little bit, how are things today? You looked at your gig list. You're pretty fully booked, aren't you, for the next year or so?
We can't complain, really. I mean, the Clan itself has been together for actually 2 years. Very shortly, in a few weeks, in fact. I don't know where 2 years has gone, but it's gone really quickly. Yeah. We've probably done about 200 gigs in that time, which is a lot more than a lot of bands do. And basically, we just love to play live. The whole band love playing live. That's what it's all about to us. We go out and we try to put on a show as well as just play the music.
Yeah.
And basically, we just have a good time.
Yeah.
And if that rubs off on the audience, which it generally does, they tend to have a good time as well.
Yeah.
We kind of mix it up now, and we do some of our the Pies, Pasties and Rock and Roll album.
Yeah.
Alongside some standard covers and a few more obscure covers as well. And it all seems to work quite well, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we're quite happy with that. Often people don't know the originals from the covers, which probably a good thing, or I don't know.
Sometimes beer speaks volumes in that sense,
Well,
doesn't it? You know, because sometimes they think they've heard the song, but it's actually an original one.
It is quite interesting because quite often they'll actually be singing along.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, they've either bought the album or this is a very catchy song, so that's quite nice.
Yeah. As a songwriter, that must be a real buzz if someone's like singing your song and you think, wow, I don't even know you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not William Shakespeare, so it's not particularly complicated. Yeah, but you know, if it works, it works, and it seems to. So
it seemed logical, knowing the band, to actually release a live album but that was a bit of a fluke, wasn't it, in a sense?
Yeah. What happened there was the album Pies, Pasties and Rock and Roll was essentially a solo album, and the band was put together to promote it live. So the drummer Jim that plays in the band is not actually on that studio album. So what we wanted to do is, because since the studio album came out, the songs have really changed. They've kind of evolved as we've played them. You know, in over 200 gigs, every member of the band has made the songs their own, and Jim has certainly changed them considerably in terms of the drumming. So what we wanted to do was take a snapshot, if you like, as to where the band were now, with the band as they are now, before we move on to the new sort of studio album that we're going to do. So it seemed a good idea to make a live album, and we've often recorded live things. But this was just a gig we were doing in near Nottingham in a place called Beeston. And the guy who was doing the sound for us, unbeknownst to us actually, was recording the gig on a multi-track. And he let us have sort of a listen to it afterwards, and he kind of mixed it a little bit. And it was great. We thought it sounded fantastic, so we had to use it for a live album. Yeah.
I think we should. This is plug time. So, what is the live album called, and how can people get hold of a copy?
Well, as it so happens,
freebies.
It's called The Clan at 100% Live. Very imaginative title. And it's available on all the usual download sites if you want to get a download. The iTunes, Amazon, Napster, all those. Failing that, it can always be obtained from the band themselves at gigs or on the band's own website, which is www.clan-rock.com. So if anybody wants a physical copy, they can order it off there as well.
You can actually capture a lot of the live energy, can't you, on a recording? And, this is testament to that.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think some things can be overproduced, really. I actually kind of like raw sounded albums. I mean, Deep Purple and Rock's a pretty raw sounded album, I think. And that's always one of my favourites, as I said before.
Made in Japan as well,
Black Sabbath 4 and Made in Japan. And even things like Grand Funk Alive, which is pretty raw. It's almost a bootleg, but I tend to prefer those kind of albums rather than the more polished ones. So that's why I quite like the sound of this one, really.
So it's just on a techie point, really. It's nice to have the technology available, but you don't always use it. It's just really straight through the Marshall.
Yes, pretty much. I'm not a big one for guitar effects either, really.
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple of my amps there, and they're just straightforward Marshall amps. Best amps in the world, in my opinion. And I just plug into them and turn them up.
Yeah. Is there a spontaneity about the Strat that perhaps you don't get with other guitars?
I don't know.
And the Marshall,
really.
Sorry, I should say, combined with that.
For me, it just works. I mean, it was probably started off by sort of Richie Blackmore and Jimi Hendrix, because obviously that's the combination they used to use. Yeah. I was never a big Zeppelin fan, so otherwise I might have had a Les Paul.
Yeah.
I did have a Les Paul for a while, but I just couldn't get on with it, really. It just didn't seem to work the same way as the Strat. Things seemed to be in the wrong position, so I just went back to the Strats. I mean, not that I ever really went away from them, but I just prefer Strats all the time now.
Well, in terms of brand synergy, we've got to get the Strat, we've got to get Marshall, and more importantly, we've got the Clan coming to a place near you. Go and see them. It's worth a treat.